The Sovereign Debt Forum, or SDF, is an idea that we're proposing to add to the international financial architecture to address a few key problems. The first one is that generally when countries get into financial trouble and it becomes clear that they need to do something to change the profile of debt service that they have lying before them, they generally delay in the hope that they won't have to do a restructuring. And when they actually do restructure their debt, they do too little restructuring. So it doesn't put them on a sustainable path going forward. We're proposing the SDF, or Sovereign Debt Forum, as an independent standing body that would provide a venue for facilitated conversations between creditors and debtors at a very early stage in financial distress, and ensure that that distress is dealt with on a more proactive basis that saves and preserves value for both creditors and debtors, and ensures that the contagion effect of a single country's crisis is minimized, and it also ensures that the well-being of its citizenry is preserved as much as possible, so that we really dampen and shorten the period in which austerity dominates the way in which we deal with sovereign crisis, and we actually begin lending in and supporting growth earlier and more quickly. What it would mean is that on an ongoing basis, we would have a body that collects lessons learned and accretes knowledge on how to do sovereign distress workouts and resolution of debt crises in the most effective way possible. Right now, every time that a sovereign gets into trouble, we reinvent the wheel, and we have to engage in ad hoc processes that aren't efficient or necessarily effective. So we want to have a standing body that ensures that institutional memory is preserved from each crisis so that we do things better each time that we get into trouble. The second thing that it would mean is that creditors and debtors are engaged in an ongoing dialogue so that we remove that stigma that comes from having to approach the IMF or other official institutions to begin dealing with a problem when it becomes identified. The idea would be that by having an ongoing conversation, a continual facilitated venue and set of surveillance discussions, you would ensure that there's no trigger problem. You would always be discussing sovereign debt and solvency. Completely in tandem with the IMF. The IMF is a repository of knowledge and skill that's unparalleled on financial crisis workouts. And the hallmark of the SDF is that it would be very light, very leanly staffed, very resource unintensive non-institution, because it would not be created by treaty. It would be simply created by the agreement of the initial actors in the international financial system, the IMF, bondholders, banks, sovereign creditors and debtors, who would come together on a standing basis to share information and discuss incipient problems. It would not replace any of the work or the staff of existing institutions. It would simply leverage them to be more effective.